Priyanshi.
Yes, sorry, my Wi-Fi cuts in and out every now and then. But
Okay.
I'll join on call in case like I disconnect completely.
Sure. Sounds good. Please join on the call. And maybe we can start in about next 30 seconds.
Yes. Would you prefer?
So you'll have to mute me on the laptop.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have Priyanshi from Northwestern, and looking forward to asking you a lot of questions, Priyanshi. So to begin with, please introduce yourself. Tell us about which school you're from and which year you are at in the college.
Yeah, so my name's Priyanshi, and before coming to Northwestern, I went to Srimati Sulochana Devi Singhania, which is in Thane. And before that, I was in Hiranandani Foundation. So I kind of like jumped around a bit in high school, did 2 years in Hiranandani, and I did 2 years in Singhania. And I am currently a junior at Northwestern that is graduating early. So I'm kind of like a rising senior at this point of time. And I'll be graduating next March.
Okay, and tell us about your major and why did you choose that?
Yeah, so I think like a lot of kids that would be on this webinar, I'm also an economics major, and I'm actually a double major with sociology. And kind of how I came to economics and sociology was at high school, I really loved research and I really loved just the economic process. I studied economics since my early 8th grade and into the 9th grade. So I'd had that exposure where I really loved the research process. I loved what economics was trying to investigate. And when I came to Northwestern, I really wanted to combine that with a social science that was able to like further my understanding of how people worked and how communities made decisions. So I had a few options. I could have gone down the economics and psychology route, which a lot of people do go down, but I really like sociology because it explored everything at the more macro level. And as someone who's studying macroeconomics as your concentration, that really like complements what I'm studying. So that's how I came up to it. I think a lot of students who study economics have a double major in something, so it's fairly regular.
Okay, great. So to all the students who are just joining us, we are in conversation with Priyanshi Katare from Northwestern, and she's sharing with us about her application journey, about her scores and extracurricular activities, about her college profile. And if you have any questions specifically directed to Priyanshi, please use the Q&A feature and type in her name first so that we know that she is going to answer that question, right? So moving on, Priyanshi, to the next question, why did you choose Northwestern and which other colleges you applied to and where else did you get in? And then why Northwestern?
Yeah, so I applied to a mix of United States and United Kingdom universities. The focus was always United States for me because I'd lived here in the past, so I understood this region a lot better. I also have like immediate family in the United States, so in general, I had a preference for this country over the United Kingdom. And I applied to Northwestern early decision. So I actually didn't apply to any other universities. The other university that I applied to early action was U Chicago, but I withdrew my application before the decisions even came out. It was part of my Northwestern contract to do that. But on my list, I had, because I was very economics focused and very social science and applied economics focused, I did have Yale, I had UPenn, I had Georgetown, I had Princeton, I think. And all of these universities kind of fall in the same category as Northwestern in terms of their culture and in terms of like the way they teach economics. So that was very important to me. I settled on Northwestern because I applied to it early and I got in. So that was like life-changing for me. Part of why I applied to Northwestern early was because I really love like Northwestern's economics faculty. Like I did my research. I had a cousin that was going there. So I had like firsthand exposure to what the teaching methods would look like. And for me, this was the way they taught economics was very, very appealing. So that really sealed the deal for me.
Awesome. Who would you say is a good fit at Northwestern? And if there is a not so good fit, who would that kind of a student be?
Yeah, I mean, I think, so I'll answer the question about who is not a good fit at Northwestern, because I think Northwestern has a very particular academic culture, which is very difficult to keep up with if you're not someone who's used to a fast-paced life. So in terms of who is not a good fit, I think if you're someone who just likes a more laid back environment, and if you are someone who prefers to have more time with your classes, because we are on the quarter system, and the way the quarter system works is that you have 10 weeks of study or 9 weeks of study and then 2 weeks of examination. And the semester system is slightly longer. So if you are someone that likes having more time with your classes, if you're someone who likes spending more time studying one particular subject matter, then Northwestern might not be the fit for you, because we go through classes really quickly and we shift through subjects very quickly. But as to who is a good fit, I think if you are someone in high school who is involved in very different sets of extracurriculars, if you have a very diverse range of interests, because at Northwestern, I think almost every student that is involved in STEM or in any field that is an applied, STEM field, is also involved in creative extracurriculars. So there's not like a box that you can fit people into. So if you're someone that enjoys that diversity, that enjoys fast-paced working, that kind of that is okay for advocating for themselves, and is okay really is okay competing for what they like, I think Northwestern's the place for you. If you're like someone who stands up for yourself, if you're someone who's really into advocating for others as well. So it's really a space where if you take advantage of it, you can create some truly brilliant things, and if you don't really step up, you can also get lost in the crowd, because there are so many students and they're all so brilliant. So definitely that would be it.
Superb. Priyanshi, do tell us a little bit about your high school scores and your test scores, your SAT or ACT scores.
Yeah, so in high school, so because I applied early, my final scores in IB didn't really matter. I'd already accepted my Northwestern offer before I even wrote my finals. I had a predicted of a 43 on 45 in IBDP. And I think that is the norm. When you get into Northwestern, that's just where everyone hits. But my SAT score, so I did give the subject SATs. I chose not to send in some of my SAT scores that I thought were irrelevant to my major, but I did give math too. I gave history, I gave English, and I gave the SATs. I got a 1530, I think, in the SATs, which at that point of time was pretty high up on the percentile range. Today, it's really not. But yeah, I had a 1530 in my SATs, and I think I had a 770 on the math too, and around the same in the English. It really doesn't matter anymore because everything's test optional, but those were the scores back then, and the class after me as well. Those were the same scores for everyone.
Okay, superb. Priyanshi, tell us a little bit about your extracurricular activities and what was on your college profile.
Yeah, so I was really involved in the creative arts at the high school level. I did a lot of plays, I did a lot of productions, and I did a lot of editing as well for my high school newspaper. So that was something that I was really involved in. I was very passionate about, and I still am very passionate about theater and creative arts. Actually, a lot of the work that we do on campus is kind of circulated around it. So I retained that throughout the years, but did a lot of that. I did Model UN. I was an avid, Model UN participant. So I did that. I established a club at Singhania that was dedicated to that as well. I did undergrad, I did actually high school research, which was actually, I think, what got me into Northwestern. I did 2 years of dedicated research with a professor in India. And the last thing that I did was I was student government head at the high school level. And I think Northwestern really does care about, how much of a student advocate you can be. So that was I think one of the things that contributed to a strong profile, but definitely it's not very restricting. I know people at Northwestern that didn't do all of that and did very different sets of things, and they're still here and they're doing great. So it's definitely not restrictive.
Superb, wonderful. And Priyanshi, my second last question to you would be, tell us about what was your Common App essay was about.
Yeah, definitely. So my Common App essay, truth be told, I wrote that Common App essay I one day had an epiphany and I was like, I need to write about this. And we were planning something very different for my essay. But I wrote about the problem of colorism in India and how I had personal experiences that kind of like throughout my time as a middle school and a high schooler, that how that affected my confidence and how that really made me stand up for myself, and it made me generate this idea of personal belonging and how I helped other people overcome it through just social action. And I think part of why that essay was so important for me was because it was a very personal take on a problem that a lot of people don't talk about. And it really talked about my life experiences as someone who just is not very stereotypically fitting in the country. So definitely it was a very difficult issue to talk about. And I think if you talk about difficult issues from a personal stance, they're just easier to tackle, and colleges respond to that really well. But definitely it's like one of the highlights of the essays that I've written in the past few years. Yeah, I think there's a copy of it somewhere that Neeraj sir has. So
cool,
yeah.
Cool, wonderful. And we are almost coming towards the end of this part of the call. And before we close, Priyanshi, please share your final comments with the students who are considering Northwestern. What would you suggest them before they start getting, like, before they work on their applications?
Yeah, definitely. So I would say this year is test optional, and I would really recommend that everyone take advantage of that, because in the past, Northwestern's have been very competitive in terms of test scores. The average SAT score last year was 1,500 for Northwestern. So like, if you don't land in that median, it is slightly difficult to get into Northwestern. But because it is test optional, be very creative with your extracurriculars and really take advantage of that. When you apply to such schools, people try to tell you that like it's an entirely numbers game, and it's really not. Like maybe 30 or 40% of your applications is the numbers game between your high school performance and your SAT performance, but the rest of it is really about how you portray yourself, and that is what makes the difference. Between someone who gets into Northwestern and someone who doesn't is someone who took time to write a really beautiful essay along with like their scores, and someone who wrote their essay in a week and then tried to submit it. So I would really say that like a part of it is really giving your applications time. And then like once you get to the college process, if you enjoy the college process, if you're really excited about the college, you should apply to it. If you're not, then you're never going to focus on the application. Like don't apply to a college because you think you should go to it, or because it's very high ranking. You will never be happy there. So really apply to places that you love, and your applications would be so smooth.
Superb. Awesome. That's really a great piece of advice. Priyanshi, there are a lot of questions coming in which are specifically directed towards you. So if you could just stay back for a few moments and type in those answers, it would be really helpful for these students. And
sure.
Thank you so much for sharing all your thoughts about your application, about your extracurricular activities. You were very, you presented it very well and very clearly. And it was a pleasure chatting with you today and learning more about your application.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and I'll stay back and answer the questions. Thank you.
Super. Thank you.